Last night, MSNBC's show The Beat aired footage of Roger Stone, notorious dirty trickster. He owns that title.
Rat effer?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's the definition of the rat
effer himself.
Yes, we're doing a better job censoring ourselves today. We must have said the F word like 40 times yesterday. But in the fun half, we'll get to it.
Let's just not talking about landlords again.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Roger Stone I called him on X, fascist Forrest Gump. I mean, on
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. Right. I should not capitulate to that garbage.
Right.
On Twitter, I tweeted that he is the Forrest Gump of fascism, basically, because he shows up in all of the Republican campaign dirty tricks since the 70s. I mean, he was basically in his early 20s involved in Watergate. He was a total Reaganite, let alone his role in the 2000 election protests in Miami-Dade County, also known as the Brooks Brothers riot, because the people who were incited to interfere in the recount in Miami-Dade on behalf of Bush were dressed in clothes that looked like they just walked out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. And then you find out that it was basically mostly Republican staffers and operators who had been enlisted by Roger Stone himself. And flash forward 20 years later, Stone was working with Enrico Tarrio of the Proud Boys in the lead up to January 6th. So his hand is in so many of these horrific moments for democracy in this country, and that comes from the right. And this is video footage obtained by The Beat of Roger Stone strategizing about promoting the fake elector scheme in Georgia. And Stone is such a narcissist that he had basically a documentarian that was following him, and that's why this footage exists. And the documentarian gave it to MSNBC. So here we go.
Some of those people have been charged, as mentioned. Others have provided testimony. The key point is the when. Many of those efforts that have been documented that we know about were picking up steam by early December. And the who, because top Trump aides and lawyers have been identified in the elector fraud process, like Giuliani, as mentioned, Boris Epstein, who has not been charged, Kenneth Chesebro, who I mentioned there. And there's another longtime Trump aide, someone who worked with Trump actually longer than any of the three people you see identified on your screen. And that brings us to the new tape, the new evidence I'm about to play for you, because there's a clue here about involvement by another individual who, according to what we can glean from both of those speaking indictments, has not been as firmly linked to these plots, though he was notably seen in Washington with Trump allies and some militias on January 6th. The person that I'm talking about in this video is a former Nixon aide, a self-described dirty trickster and longtime Trump advisor, Roger Stone. We identify him here for the first time in this plot tonight based on the hard evidence, not some tip or secondhand hearsay. So with the calendar and legal context in mind, we turn to the scoop. We're now going to play for you so you may listen to this new exclusive video edited for clarity as Roger Stone works with an associate to dictate his plans and arguments for how they had a plan as early November. That's how early this was. In states that Biden won or was winning, where Republican politicians would try to, quote, as Stone puts it, send in electors who reflect President Trump's, quote, victory.
Although state officials in all 50 states must ultimately certify the results of the voting in their state, the final decision as to who the state legislatures authorize be sent to the Electoral College is a decision made solely by the legislature. Any legislative body may decide on the basis of overwhelming evidence of fraud to send electors to the Electoral College who accurately reflect the president's legitimate victory in their state, which was illegally denied him through fraud. We must be prepared to lobby our Republican legislatures by personal contact and by demonstrating the overwhelming will of the people in their state, in each state,
Will to power.
that this may need to happen.
So that's pretty damning.
This was November 5th, 2020, so 2 days after the presidential election.
It was set in motion right
Yeah,
away.
and the idea that there's no way this was independent because Trump was acting as if this was the plan basically from that point on.
Roger Stone is very happy to eat shit. All right, now now we're cursing already. Damn it. And be the guy that gets his hands dirty.
That's what his role is.
That's literally his role, and that's why he's the one talking to Enrico Tarrio of the Proud Boys, and not Mark Meadows or Trump or any of the other guys directly associated with Trump. Stone worked on the 2016 campaign, was ousted by, I believe, what was the guy who was his campaign manager who came from either Vermont or Corey Lewandowski. Yeah.
New Hampshire. Yeah.
And then New Hampshire. And then Lewandowski was ousted and Stone came back in because Trump always wanted him around. Because Stone and Trump are simpatico. They're both deeply sociopathic narcissists who want to gain power by any means necessary and have deep contempt for democracy. And this was evident in Stone's previous work in Republican circles, both with his involvement in Watergate, both with his efforts to stop the recount in Florida, to ensure that Bush would be the president, even when the votes were not fully counted, and creating demonstrations in order to freak out the people who were counting the votes in Miami-Dade County to ensure that his guy got to power. And then the escalation to a legitimate attempt and plot to overthrow the Democratic results that were not as ambiguous as they were in 2000. It was clear that Biden won. And still it didn't stop them because this is the mentality of a fascist foot soldier. And I was shocked that Stone was not the sixth unnamed co-conspirator in the federal indictment. It ended up being Boris Epstein, which he was identified as a political operative, and I thought it was for sure Stone. And that Stone, I don't think, was named in the Georgia case either. But he's clearly doing work on behalf of Trump in this case. And I just think there's some symbolism in this, honestly, the fact that Stone is still involved here because, the Republican anti-democracy efforts looked a little different in 2000 with the Brooks Brothers rioters. They're a little more buttoned up, a little more connected to Wall Street, right? A little more, I don't know, clean in the way that they present to the public. And then it just looked a little different in 2020 with the Proud Boys and the militias and the weaponry hidden in and around Washington, the reconnaissance efforts. But it's all really the same. It really is.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing that was, it drives me crazy about the way we talk about January 6th as if 2000 didn't happen. And that was just like a different environment. But Trump had given the Republicans too much to where they didn't need to give him, the 2000 election, going to Gore. We can get into this in the fun half, I guess. But like that is what Trump wanted. He just wanted 2,000 done for him, and he wanted the people there who knew how to get that done. And a lot of them are still around, and the only reason, one of the main reasons it didn't happen is because they decided it wasn't worth the risk.
Exactly. And by the way, Stone should be in prison right now, but the only reason he's not is because Trump commuted his 40-month sentence for lying to Congress during an investigation and for witness tampering. He would have been in locked up at the time that was taken if it were not for Trump's commuting of his sentence. So that's the kind of guy that Roger Stone is, and man, is he a rat! Like the fact that he's still around, buddy. It's like the same principle that of Kissinger still being alive and Dick Cheney still being alive. It's just like, how are these horrific human beings lasting this long?
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you don't have a soul, you don't get that stressed.
But I mean, actually, these institutions, as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, the institution is the length of a man, the shadow of a man. Like these people having this institutional knowledge is extremely vital. It's why I think the Democrats have such a tough time having the future crop come in. It's because, Feinstein has connections
right.
with certain types of donors that have expect things to go a certain type of way, and that's the Republicans have the exact same sort of institutionality, but just against elections.